those vibes, those Long Island vibes. Your boy, Tommy D, the nonprofit sector connector, coming at you from the studio, not from the attic like we talk about sometimes. Every week on this show, I bring to you a friend of mine, somebody who is a Long Island changemaker. Sometimes they're a nonprofit leader, sometimes they're a business leader, sometimes they're right there on the fringe doing both of those things. And in this case today with my friend Ed Probst, we're going to talk a lot about business, we're going to talk a lot about nonprofit organizations. But I'm going to lean right in and just say, Ed Probst, my friend, business partner, I'm going to say this. You know what, gang? Bring me back to the main camera. Let's do this. Let's do this for a second. If you know, you know. If you know the Golden Girls show back in the day, I'm going to say this. Picture this. Bayside, Queens, 2003, Bell Boulevard, probably some bar. I met Ed Probst and Vinny Blasi, the Bayside business, probably some bar. You remember that from Golden Girls? Sophia would say, 100%. Picture this, Sicily, 11921.
I'm not so crazy about using the Golden Girls reference when they're introducing me on the show, but
I thought about that reference coming back down the hall before. I said, I'm going to do that.
Yeah.
Picture this, Sicily, 1921, that little old lady.
Yeah.
She was great. But remember those days, man. Remember, you know, back in Bayside, back where, like, that's when I met you guys.
That's how it all started, right?
I was 24 years old.
Yeah.
I'm older than
I was 23.
I don't know how that happened, because that doesn't sound like the right math.
Yeah.
But that's 2003. That's 22 years ago. It's a long time ago.
Long time, a lot of history.
A lot of history, a lot of stories, you know, a lot of late nights. The thing I used to laugh about was, like, sometimes I tell this story, I can't believe I'm going to tell the story now. You and I know this. Many people know I don't drink alcohol anymore, but I used to. And I always used to get a kick out of, like, we'd go, like, do happy hour. And we would start, like, happy hour. I was working at ADP at the time. And then I have a couple drinks, you have a couple drinks, and you go, all right, listen, I'm out of here, I'm going to the gym. And I'm like, what are you talking about going to the gym? Like, we're now, like, doing this drinking thing. I spent a lot of years on Bell Boulevard having fun, and you know, we did a lot of business there too. That's where, back then, you and Vinny had the office. This is going way before Valley Stream, the office upstairs on Bell. You hung out a lot at Bourbon Street and stuff like that. So shout out to the guys at Bourbon Street, we love those guys, you know. I want to tell your story, though. I mean, we can go to baseball, we can, you know, certainly go to what we do in the benefits business. I want to talk, what is a Vanguard Benefits Hall of Fame employer, all the stuff you do philanthropically. So, you know, this show is really kind of just riding the wave and seeing where it goes. And for 22 years, you've been watching this wave. So let's take out your board, baby. Let's
Tidal
go.
Wave.
Tidal wave. That's good. That's good. I like to say I'm El Nino, kind of like a hurricane and a nor'easter together.
I'm with you.
Yeah. So how did it even start? I mean, growing up in Queens, let's start there with your life story.
Yeah, well, I think a lot of what you just said is really, it meshes all into one whole story here. A lot of community-based stuff. I grew up in Queens, right? So Bayside was always important to me because, you know, quite frankly, the first time we started going to bars, it was in Bayside,
right? Is that right? That was always a spot. Right?
Yeah, and but that's not why it was, you know, the most important. But you know, we met a lot of great people up there and a lot of great relationships, and it's always been a great community. But Queens in general, you know, that's why
I love Queens, man. You know, it's so great. It's so diverse. We talk about it. I mean, Bayside Business Association, which we'll talk about, but like the Queens Chamber, our friend Tom Gretsch always has something to say about, you know, the diversity of Queens, man. You walk 2 blocks and you're in another country, you know?
Yeah. Look, I grew up in a blue-collar neighborhood. My dad worked 2 jobs, you know, always. Like, I didn't see him a lot during the day because, you know, he was working his job in the city, he'd come home, change his clothes, go to another job, and that's what a lot of people in that neighborhood do.
That's a hustle, man. You know, you hear about those stories, like where you do one and then you keep going and do another one. It's just how you had to do it, man.
But it taught me work ethic. Like, you bring up that you know, funny story, and we talk about this story all the time about how, you know, I left the bar to go work out, but you know, my dad ingrained in me from a very young age that work hard, play hard type of philosophy, and like, I can't get to that next step of when it's ready to play until I'm finished what I have to do for my work.
Love that.
And so that's kind of how you know, that's been my philosophy my whole career, and in my, you know, public services career and my you know, my business career too.
Yeah. What was it? How did, I guess, tell the story a little bit. I mean, let's talk about baseball, because it's such an important part of your life, and it's certainly become you know, with the new logo and a lot of the branding and stuff, the cool stuff we have going on is so on brand. And you're a pitcher. Let's tell them that story, because some people don't know your story.
Yeah, well, my connection to baseball is very deep. It runs very deeply in my family. It's probably the biggest connection that I have with my dad still to this day, whether that's the Mets or baseball in general. Like, you know, there's not 2 minutes that goes by without he and I wound up morphing into a baseball conversation. But I had a love for it. There's so many things, and that's one of the reasons why we weave this into the fabric of our business, is because it's just been a very important part of my life.
Yeah.
Our partner is my friend since I'm 9 years old, and we met on the baseball field.
You and Vinny Blasi,
Yeah.
shout out to Vinny, yep.
Yeah, met on the baseball field, played baseball together, travel ball together, wound up playing against each other in college. But it's just been a very big and very important part of my life.
Yeah.
I have so many, countless relationships that have come from my days of playing baseball, whether it was, starting out as in Little League, playing high school at St. Francis Prep, winning a city championship with St. Francis Prep.
Did you really?
I was just talking to my guys the other day.
I didn't know that. Is that right?
Oh, yeah.
What year were you in your?
1986. I was a junior.
Oh, you're junior. Yeah.
I was a junior year, and we won the city championship. And you build a brotherhood that.
Of course.
We still talk like,
All
we might
these
not
years
have
later.
seen each other in 15 years, but we talk like, when we get together, or we talk
you got
by
old
text or phone.
stories.
You
Yeah,
old
it's
stories.
cool.
Yeah,
That's cool stuff. Yeah.
And then moving on to college, played 2 years of baseball at Queensborough Community College, where I had an unbelievable experience, and still my dear friend Lou Santos, who was a retired Spanish teacher at Archbishop Malloy, one of my very good friends. And where I met one of my best friends now, Matt Connolly, who
good dude, Matt
we
Connolly.
played baseball at Queensborough, and then we both got scholarships to play at New York Tech. And Matt actually wound up playing professionally for several years.
Yeah.
So the moral of the story is, it's ingrained in me. It's something that has been such a very important part of my life, and I try to take the principles I've learned on the baseball field and bring that to my philanthropic work and my professional work.
So I could guess, but let me just ask you, what principles would you say you're taking from baseball that translate into business? And
dedication, work hard, fight. Even with my kids right now, I try to teach them.
I fight with my kids too.
Yeah,
I don't think that's what you meant.
Not that kind of fight, right? And I fight with them all the time too. But I think kids, especially coming out of the years of COVID, they're having a hard time with that battling mentality and
like
being able to
grit.
fight through adversity.
Right. Grit's so important. There's a book, Duckworth, Professor Duckworth has this book about grit, and it's just, it's a key differentiator with people's success or not being successful. It's just to find that extra grit, just the extra push, that oomph. Yeah.
100%. I mean, one of the things is that just going back to baseball, I never give up.
Yeah.
Like, I never give up. My brain is trained to find a way to figure out how to do something, which can be quite stressful at times, but also really good at times, because I have a lot of determination. I try to teach that to my kids now.
Do you think that they don't, and I don't mean your children, I mean children generally, you think they're like, this is the wrong word, but like softer or weaker, or just because I go, like some of the stuff that goes on in my house, I'm like, come on, like, walk it off, like, let's go, like, let's just find another level. Where's and I use that word specifically. Where's your grit? Like,
it's not their fault.
Let's talk about that.
I think you're right. It's not their fault. I think the world has changed. We're in an immediate gratification world. They get what they want when they want it. They swipe their finger and they got what they want, whether that's a Starbucks or just something that they're trying to look up online or whatever
it's all there.
It's all there for them. They're not, you and I probably, I'm sure you left your house on a summer morning, right, and went out and rang the doorbells of your friends. Yeah. And then you went to the park and you spent the whole day at the park. And
just went out.
That stuff doesn't go on anymore.
No,
We're
I know.
in the play date world.
I was with somebody yesterday, Ed, and play date world. I like that. As my kids got older, it's not play dates. I mean, we're hanging out. So, but my young guy, we're like on this thing. Is it a play date or we're hanging out? I got to still figure that out. Yeah. But it was. I lost my train of thought for a second there. It was a possibility where you went out and you played all day and things like that, right? Like you said, I'm talking to somebody just yesterday who was saying that, I can't remember who it was. It was one of our people that we hang around with, and said to punish the kid, they make him go outside.
Imagine that.
To punish the kid, they make him, like, when you're in trouble, I make you go outside. I'm like, what? Like, that's. But there's your answer to my question. He's
100%.
Like,
I got to tell my son, not as much as my daughter, but my daughter, I got to make her go outside. You need to go outside and do something. Whereas, that's how I got good at baseball. I had 4 of my buddies, we were all baseball players. Most of my friends are baseball players. And we would get up in the morning and go to the field. We didn't have to be told. And we would stay there all day. And we would, hit ground balls and throw and hit and everything you need to do. We didn't have to be told. It was the other way. My mom was yelling at us to come back for dinner.
Come home. Yeah. See, that's not that long ago.
No.
That's just But I guess I mean it's funny because we were talking about the technology, you and I, before, just like how much it's too much. It's so the phones and the devices and things like that. And there is some positivity in this stuff. I think it's great that you can access things and stuff. But I think if I had to look at it, I think the negativity of these devices overpowers how much good that comes out of it. That's just my quick thought assessment. I think because we don't know how bad it's all going to get. And I see it with the anxiety and all this kind of stuff. Our friend Dr. Grubler, I was watching an episode of another show we do here, and Dr. Grubler and I were talking, and I made a Tommy D joke because he was like, Tommy, there's a statistic that 75% of people are experiencing anxiety. And I said, Doc, I'm looking at that, and it says the other 25 didn't take the survey. That's the only reason they didn't say it, because his point was there's so much going on in the world, but all that activity in the devices and the constant, I mean, I'm telling you this, I tell you this, I don't watch the news, man. We don't watch the news in my house. You can't. You can't. Like, I was somewhere yesterday afternoon, and I didn't even know they picked a new pope. And then the guy's like, oh, they picked.
You didn't see the smoke?
Not from where I was. I was driving down Stewart Avenue. There was no smoke on Stewart Avenue. I would have thought it would have been a fire, though. It's that sort of stuff that the more we can disconnect. But I want to get into some of the things about, your involvement with CP now. So you've been on the board there. We do business with them as well. But you've been on the board there such a long time. There's a story there why familial that's connected to you. But you made a decision a bunch of years ago, and I remember that we decided, like, you and your family, that we're going all in. Like, this is an important cause for us. Tell us about that.
Yeah, when my kids are born, my wife and I wanted to set an example for them, quite frankly. And we said we're going to align ourselves with a charity. We're going to find a charity that is near and dear to our hearts. And CP was something that was important to us. My wife's sister passed away. She had CP and from side effects from CP. And I have a cousin who's been CP, and I've always admired him as a child. Talking about grit, determination. You want to bring that full speed. Live a life, live a day in the life of somebody with that type of disability, and you'll see what determination and grit is all about. And here's a guy that could not walk on his own. His hands had deformities. He couldn't speak, and he could hear, but very, very disabled. And he could do more than a lot of people I know right now can accomplish in a day.
That have no disability.
Had no disability.
I got to speak the other night. I don't even know if I told you. I spoke at the Kiwanis the other night up on North Shore, not far from here. And when I'm speaking, I start to bring up this place of gratitude, like, early on. And I talk about what I'm grateful for. And two of the things I say all the time that I'm grateful for are my legs and my eyes. And, like, literally my absolute opportunity that I can see you and have this conversation, right? And I can get up from this and walk away. And not that I'm leaving, but like that I could if I wanted to. And we don't always have mobility forever. And if we're going to live long enough, we'll probably lose our mobility at some point. And I think when you have that you're able-bodied, and God, man, you got a lot to be thankful for, and that's it.
We take it for granted.
100%.
We totally take it for granted. One of the things that's the most rewarding with my work with CP is, seeing some of the individuals and their grit and determination, like a Charlie Fleisch, who's a big Met fan. You would love him too. He's a huge Met fan. I see him at the Met games all the time, and he's on his speaking device, and he's able to communicate very well from a speaking device. Or I'll never forget, one of the things that struck me the most, I always tell the stories, right? When I went on a visit at CP, when I first started volunteering there, and so that's why Justine and I decided to go there, and my friend Joel Meltzer, our friend Joel Meltzer, was the one that introduced me there.
I didn't realize that. Is that right?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
We were having lunch one day. I told him the story about what my wife and I were looking to do. I told him about our family members, and he told me he was a board member there. So, but when I went on the visit, I saw a 4-year-old boy, and the therapist who was working with him is still there. And I always tell him the story, but there's a 4-year-old boy who was trying to walk, and he had a walker or walker device at that time. I'm not really sure what it was called, And I watched this kid with determination go from one side of the hall to the other, and it was only maybe like 12 feet, but he was battling, and he was sweating, and I said,
Kid didn't stop, huh?
Didn't stop. And he made it, and it just struck me that, you know.
What the pain the kid was going through, right?
Yeah, and you could see the pain in his face. Absolutely.
Good.
And he didn't quit,
Right.
and I said, you know.
That inspires you to this day. That's
100%.
how many years ago. You've told me this story one other time, and I remembered it now. Like, that's a game-changing situation, you know, because.
When I was honored by CP a few years ago.
Did you tell that story that night? That's why I remember it. Yeah,
that night.
Yep, I remember that. Yeah, and that stuff sticks with you, man. It stays with you, you know, and that.
Well, kids are big for me.
Yeah,
and you know that. You know,
from the
just
coaching
taking
and
it
all
back
stuff.
to the baseball side. Like I've been a baseball coach volunteering, you know, for 30 years now, probably. I think as soon as I was done at New York Tech, I started working in baseball camps at New York Tech, and then. You know, there was maybe a couple of breaks in between that time, but for the most part, for 30 years, I've been volunteering as a baseball coach. And now I have the, you know, the privilege to be able to coach my own son.
Pretty awesome.
For many years, it wasn't. It was other kids, and I learned a lot as a coach, and I was able to give back to him.
Yeah, that's awesome.
But you know, that all it's all part of it. Like it's all, you know, it's all related. So it comes full circle. You wind up doing things in your life and you don't realize why you're doing them sometimes, and then you look back and you look at your history and what you've done, and it kind of just steers you in that direction, in the right way.
Yeah, what a great assessment. You got to look back and reflect on those things, and yeah, to see you just go through that right now, that's really cool. I want to talk about our business, and I want to talk about, you know, I'm excited. I'm excited where we are right now as it relates to this new thing we're doing, and let's just, you know what I'm talking about. I want to just talk about the Vanguard Benefits
Hall of Fame award. So, yeah. So as you know, we started that this year, and we put our heads together. You know, the three partners, and came up with a strategy. You know, looking at our clients, I think the thing that is really common in our organization is we're not stagnant and we're not complacent. And we're always looking for ways to deliver something better for our clients. That's the one thing that I really feel proud over the years is that we're constantly trying to think forward. How can we deliver better?
Not everybody in our space, actually, you know what, we should go back a couple steps, because not everybody in our space that does the work we do, I think, is looking for onto. I mean, the word Vanguard basically means to look at the forefront and go forward, right? Yeah. So in this case, like, why don't we set the stage what Vanguard Benefits is for folks who might not know, and because like I believe some of our peers are not willing to learn more, take more chances, so to speak, as far as looking at different product sets and different things for clients. So let's just set for people who Vanguard Benefits is, because not everybody knows that.
Yeah, so we're an employee benefits consulting firm. We've been around now, we're in our 26th year, and we provide employee benefit strategies that help our clients retain and attract top talent. Our goal is to try and make them an employer of choice, or what we call a Hall of Fame employer.
Hall of Fame, yeah. It sounds like a baseball theme again, Probst.
Yeah,
not
right.
bad.
Yeah, how'd that happen?
Yeah, not so bad there.
Yeah.
You know, like even with the new logo, and it feels like I keep saying the new logo, but we did that rebrand.
Probably 4 or 5 years in now.
Is it? Is it?
At least 4, I think.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
But in the logo, there's the stitching, which came out of that. And shout out to Spirit of Huntington Arts Center. What a great partnership we have with those guys. You know, a couple weeks ago, I had James Young from Spirit of Huntington right here in that seat. And he's a Long Island Changemaker. And he does great work. And the conversation we had, though, was so open and so real about, talk about grit, his obstacles that he's been through. And that team over there, they do such great work for us. I love partnering up with them.
We'll talk about bringing it full circle again, right? So, weaving in my history in growing up in Queens, and I've already told you how big of an impact that was on my life, right? And fast forward to the Spirit of Huntington days, where they're doing an incredible job. One thing they do is they did an incredible job of getting who we are out and into our brand. Yeah. And so James Young, as you mentioned, Jimmy Young was a friend of mine. I grew up playing basketball with him on the basketball courts. A great guy, a mentor to me. He was a New York City fireman, and tragically and very bravely lost his life in a fire. I believe it was a mattress warehouse fire. And then fast forward 30 years later, we're working with Spirit of Huntington with James Young, not even realizing that's Jimmy Young's nephew. And what a story.
I got to tell you this. I haven't even told you this. A couple weeks ago, well, you know that we were here. We had puppies and pours. We had the dogs, and we had the wine, and we had the band here, which is called Time Traveling Trio, which is James's band. Okay, Judy Limpert is over here in the audience, if you will, networking. She goes, "Is that Jimmy Young?" And I'm like, "Judy, it is." And now I got 60 people I'm catering to, so I don't know if I ever had a chance to grab them and put them together, because she had seen him on Zoom calls because Spirit of Huntington did the work.
She's the one that pointed it out.
For the Bayside Business Association.
I was on with her.
Right.
She's the one that I was thinking.
She said, right? Yeah, that's right. We were on a Zoom call because they had just done the BBA stuff. Crazy how, but that's life, man. And I don't
talk about being, coming full circle. All the things we're talking about, they just happen.
Well, I see. There's one other part to that, and I think you know this part of the story. But I first go out to Spirit of Huntington in memory of my cousin Lindo. I have a $1,500 check for the Spirit of Huntington Art Center. Never heard of that place in my life. I call this guy Michael Katakis. I go out there. I meet Diane Young, James's mom, okay, who's our friend, who's the associate director. By the way, I'm on the board, gang. All these years later, all these things happen, right? Of Spirit of Huntington, and I meet Diane Young, and she tells me that we somehow start talking Floral Park. My uncle Joe Graziano, New York City fireman, owned Halligan's, where I tended bar, where my wife and I met. Diane's sister, Uncle Joe's wife, is my godmother, my Aunt Dolores. Diane's sister bought the house from my aunt and uncle. James, one day we were on a Zoom call. The time you were talking about with Judy, we're on that Zoom call, and James is like renting the house across the street from where it's some crazy, like, he ends up not renting my aunt's house from his aunt or however, but is living in the house across the street, right by Belmont. We're talking about Floral Park, the village of Floral Park, where they had a fence that like borders Belmont, but the track. But like all these weird connections, man. But are they weird? No, it's probably just the way it is. It's probably just like how life goes, It's that type of stuff. I want to talk about the rollout with what we're doing. Spirit of Huntington is very, very involved with what we're doing with the whole Hall of Fame. We're at that point now. So we're announcing, or we will be announcing very shortly, the 24 winners, and we're going to be talking about the process. So what are you most excited about to have this discussion with these Hall of Fame employers?
Well, I'm most excited about shining a light on the great work they're doing.
Yeah.
That's what's the coolest part about this, is that we found when we did the evaluations with the 2024 winners, which we'll announce over the next 2 weeks, we'll be announcing, we'll be notifying them, announcing them that they are the 2024 inductees. But just helping them, the employers, especially nonprofit employers, are struggling with recruiting and retention. It is real, it's challenging, it costs money, and I think we've evolved in the employer world over the last 10 years greatly. I feel like 10 years ago, if you talk to an employer about mental health in the workplace or wellness strategies or things like that, there really wasn't much interest in it. Now we're having employers that ask us about this stuff all the time, every day.
Why do you think what are they responding to from their population of people that it's become important to them?
Well, I think, your other show, right? Ending the Stigma, right? I think people are really astute now to the fact that everybody faces some kind of mental health challenge, whether it's you personally or it's somebody in your family or somebody somebody is afflicted by it in some capacity. And I think they've now identified, including insurance companies, have identified that, hey, if we can work on our population and create a culture of well-being, we can create a lot more productivity in the workplace as well. So I think, employees are asking their employers for this. They expect their employers to provide these kind of services, and employers are now starting to recognize that, hey, this really is better for our business, to make sure that we have a culture where people feel included, where people feel that they are not stressed all the time, and then they feel like the employer's got their back, for lack of a better word, and that's what Hall of Fame employers do.
Yeah, I love that. And we talk a lot about culture and as it relates to, so we're benefits guys, right? Like, so we sell and service employee benefits, right? But conversations around, hey, maybe we can save you some money on your benefits, is that's amateur stuff, man, right? Like,
boring too.
It's boring, and maybe you can do it, maybe you can't do it, right? But the bottom line of what comes down to is, we know what your problem is. We understand that you're trying to attract and retain talent, right? culture is what does that. Culture, I care about my people. I want to talk about professional development for my people, right? I want to think about, hey, what I told you and Vinny about this book not too long ago. When I worked at ADP, when we first met, there was like an audio. Actually, it was on a CD. It was a book on a CD back when you had people. What's a CD?
CD.
I gotta tell you a funny story. I'll try to get back to it. The book was called The Dream Manager, and excuse me, the Dream Manager was a designation in this. It was a fable. It was a made-up story about this company, but the Dream Manager would interview people and see what was important to them. What did they want? Not, hey, how long you want to work here? What kind of PTO was important? No, no, no. It was like, what do you want to do? Well, I've always wanted to own a home, right? Or I'm having challenges getting here because, you know, I don't have a vehicle. So they would, the Dream Manager would create all these different things to me, and it was a really family-like environment because of that. So that's what I think about when I think about these things as culture. I want to tell you this funny quick joke. So the other day, this will show you our age. The other day, I'm like, oh, sir, what's your name? Tommy D. You know, like one word. You know, like Cher, like Madonna, like Bono. Yeah. And this young person just looks at me like, I go, none of those? You don't know Cher? Oh, but then the young person says, was Madonna like a singer? Come on, man! Like, come on, are we there?
We're back to our original question about you know, kids being you know, a little bit more worldly and tough, right?
Oh
you know.
my God, you don't know, you have no context of the history. I mean, I wasn't making obscure names. I didn't say, maybe if I said Ozzy Osbourne, maybe if I said Ozzy, they would have known. Yeah. What do you see as kind of like an important thing for, let's just kind of hit people with, you lead our business, right? President, CEO of our firm, you're certainly the visionary for a lot of the work we're doing out there. What would you say to other employers and other leaders of companies that they should think about, whether it be taking care of the people from like what we talk about, culture and benefits, or just like having a vision of how to really work in the marketplace?
Yeah, I think, I'll go back to what I said before. I think doubling and tripling down on creating a positive culture. We're seeing more of it. But I think that, you know, if you're not on board now with the fact that candidates are looking at you for those reasons, and you know, I like to say it's candidates are really interviewing employers now. Employers are not interviewing candidates anymore. So if you want to be competitive in the job market, and you know, especially if you're a nonprofit trying to be competitive against for-profits that are probably paying higher salaries. You have to really look at your culture and start to invest in your culture and in your people. I think a lot of employers are starting to do this already, so I don't think this is something that's foreign to all employers, but I think in continuing to improve on that, but not only improve on it, show it, right? That's what we're trying to do with the Hall of Fame, is help our employers that we induct shine a light on what they're doing and show the world that, hey, this is a great place to work. And if we can do that, I mean, that excites me to do that. And I think that, you know, the whole program in itself excites me because we're not just benefits guys anymore selling health insurance, right? We're out there trying to make an impact on something that's a real challenge in the world. And going back to, you know, full circle on everything that really molded my life, right? It's all been community-based. Yeah. It's all been where I grew up. It's all been, you know, volunteering, the Bayside Business Association. Everything's been about community. So if we can take that approach into what we're trying to do with the Hall of Fame, we can make an impact by impacting those employees by either encouraging the employers to keep doing a good job and do a better job, or just, you know, getting started doing that.
100%, 100%. Great call. Great. My man. Listen, gang, this is the show. It's called Long Island Changemakers. This is the Long Island Changemaker right here. He is a couple years older than me. I had to get that in before the show is over. The show, every single week, I'm going to bring you great people making great decisions, helping out the world. But check us out, Vanguard Benefits You, YOU.com, VanguardBenefitsU.com. That's us. That's Vanguard Benefits. Shout out to Vinny, Anne-Marie, and David, the rest of our team. This show is called Long Island Changemakers. I am called Tommy D because I've been that way since I'm 2 years old. This has been another In Focus production. I'll see you guys later. Bye.